Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Months the Earth Stood Still, the series where I talk about films that I own physical copies of that are quarantine themed to watch during lockdown. Tonight's episode is videotaped inside of a live studio apartment. Tonight's film, we're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. I feel I have to whisper that title because so many of his films that are advertised feature a spooky voiceover that whispers the title to make the film sound more mysterious. And unfortunately, a lot of times it just comes off as very pretentious. Not to say that his films are not bad. With M. Night, it's always hit or miss. Thankfully, today I'm going to be talking about what I believe is one of his better films, and it is the 2002 thriller Signs. Now, for those of you that don't know, and I'm sure at this point everybody knows that the film deals with an alien invasion on planet Earth and the struggles of one particular American family that's dealing with this invasion. Now, in interviews, M. Night Shyamalan has said that his inspiration for setting the majority of this film in a farmhouse was Alfred Hitchcock's 1963 thriller, The Birds, as well as George Romero's 1968 Night of the Living Dead. And both of those movies I've reviewed in season 1 of The Month the Earth Stood Still. And, this film is no exception. What's really cool about it is that the majority of the film does take place in a farmhouse. And we do have a few moments where the family travels to the town at least once. And, other than flashbacks or what the characters are watching on TV, the majority of the film does take place inside of this house. And the correlation between that and The Birds and Night of the Living Dead is that in The Birds, our main characters barricade themselves inside of their farmhouse from the onslaught of the birds. And a good portion of that film takes place inside their house. With Night of the Living Dead, the majority of the film takes place in a farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, just like this film, with our characters barricading themselves from an onslaught of virus-infected zombies. There is also a small connection to the Twilight Zone, and one of this film's strongest points is the music score. His frequent collaboration with composer James Newton Howard, again, does a phenomenal job with the score. He approached James Newton Howard to come up with a theme that was kind of reminiscent of the Twilight Zone. And James Newton Howard came up with this three-note motif that just, increases with tension. And, doing my research, I found out that James Newton Howard was kind of a protege of Jerry Goldsmith. He had, from what I can remember, James Newton Howard had played a few instruments for Jerry Goldsmith's score for Twilight Zone the movie. And Jerry Goldsmith had also scored a lot of classic Twilight Zone episodes. In particular, one particular episode called The Invaders, which deals with an old woman who barricades herself inside of a farmhouse and is attacked by a group of tiny robot-looking men. I don't want to give anything away because there's a really cool twist to that episode. But what's really cool about that episode is that there's absolutely no dialogue. It's just that actress alone in the farmhouse, and Jerry Goldsmith's music score. You could tell it was the precursor to his score for Twilight Zone the movie, and especially was the precursor to his score for Gremlins, because there's a lot of shrieking violins, and I've noticed that James Newton Howard also implemented some of those violins in the beginning of the main theme for this film. And it just totally fits with the tone. It's a farmhouse, it's in rural Pennsylvania. So there's that cool Twilight Zone connection. And even somebody that reviewed this movie labeled it as a Twilight Zone type thriller. There is kind of a twist to this film, but it's not so much of a twist. It's more of like a premonition of things to come. You know, the title of this film has kind of a double meaning. You know, we see the crop circles in news reports, which are, you know, signs for, you know, the aliens coming, and, you know, signs that are, you know, premonitions of, you know, moments of our past that, you know, lead to, you know, future events. And I think M. Night Shyamalan was also inspired by the demise of the aliens in the War of the Worlds, meaning that he wanted to take something, an element that was so simple and ordinary that we take for granted in everyday life, and use that as the demise of the invaders. In the War of the Worlds, which in any version that you watch of War of the Worlds, the aliens are defeated over time by being exposed to our germs, the bacteria in the air. You know, they die of a virus. And, you know, spoiler alert, they are defeated by something that is very, very normal to us. And I've heard a lot of criticism regarding this because, okay, there's going to, spoiler review. The aliens are defeated by water. The water injures them. And I've heard a lot of criticism saying, well, you know, if the aliens are that smart, you know, why do they invade a planet that's 70% water? And I actually challenge that, because nowhere in the film did they confirm that these aliens were intelligent. And also, these are beings from another world. They're not used to our topography. They're not used to our the elements that we have here on Earth. So they have no knowledge. They probably don't have any knowledge of what water is. So of course, you know, they're going to explore the planet and see. You know, they're not going to. There's no familiarity to what we consider everyday. You know, there's no familiarity to water. So I think it's an unfair criticism. Another criticism that I hear about this film is that it's a little too preachy. Now, I don't want to get into anything too preachy. I don't want to get like overly spiritual about anything. Being that this is an American family, it is, you know, especially one that lives out in a rural area, there is. It is inevitable that if a family like that were to be of any faith, it would be of Judeo-Christian type faith, and so that's what M. Night used as sort of traits for this family. Now, on the surface, one could say that the character loses faith, and it's about regaining faith, and you know, it's a little too preachy. But you can apply this, you know, if you were to do a family that was attacked by aliens in India, you know, and that was a story about that person regaining faith. The religion would be different, but the mindset would be there, where the element of the story is about recovering your faith and regaining your faith in anything. It doesn't have to be a Judeo-Christian faith. So, you know, faith is a good thing. You know, it's faith in anything is all right. Spirituality is cool. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. That's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is that this character, Mel Gibson's character, has an arc towards the film. Uh, this film has a kind of weird, not a forebode. It has a weird element of sadness because Mel Gibson's character deals with a lot of grief, and I found out that they started shooting this. They started shooting this film right the day after 9/11. So there's that element of sadness that's kind of an undercurrent throughout the film. One of the cool things about the making of this film is that the filmmakers chose a location at a college that was very heavy with the agricultural department, and so the filmmakers grew their own stalks of corn for for the set, and they were able to grow it so quickly that the staff of the agricultural department and the students were so curious that they wanted to learn from the filmmakers how they were able to grow corn so quickly. So that's another cool thing. Now, this film has some really genuinely creepy moments that I don't want to give away. There is one particular moment that occurs at a birthday party that was genuinely frightening. I remember seeing this with a girl at the movie theaters when it came out, and like nothing gory happens, but it's all about the the tension, which I love. It's all about the anticipation. It was and the visuals were just genuinely frightening, and that isn't the only frightening moment in the film. There's quite a few of them, which I definitely recommend. Watching with the lights off and with the sound up. In fact, that particular moment that I'm talking about made it onto a list of most frightening moments in film. I forget what poll it was, but it was on a list. And I remember for whatever reason I couldn't go with my family to see it, but my family went with some of my younger cousins, and they had a blast watching this film. All like embracing each other through the frightening moments. And I feel that after this film came The Village, and that's another story where a group of people cut themselves off from civilization without giving the twist away. Although you could kind of see the twist coming, it's still kind of a trip, and it's still kind of messed up. And so with The Village, that's where I started to see a little bit of a decline in his storytelling. Part of that was the way how The Village was marketed. The Village kind of slides into different genres. You have, I guess you could say it's a period piece with a strong love story and elements of a thriller. And with someone like M. Night Shyamalan, who's made a name for himself doing The Sixth Sense and Signs, you're going to market it as a thriller. There's probably no other way to do it. And I think a lot of people were let down